All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our prompt lab, how to write the best prompt. My name is Soraya, and I'm your host for today. A little bit about us. I'm a founder of Aiku. Together with Ziggy, today we have our prompt lab, and we are from Aiku, a company specializing in applied AI based in Wiesbaden, Germany. We bring automation to the industry to enable better and healthier community by helping companies to make process of customized AI software development more efficient and economical. So we design, prototype, and develop customized AI software, but also we believe in the magic of action. Therefore, we have our Gen AI master classes as well as courses for the ones who are interested in building their own Gen AI tools. So what is Prompt Lab? Many of you probably already have been here or watched the video, but I would like to share a little bit about what we do here. It's a series of 5 online learning sessions covering one of the most central topics in the space of Gen AI, how to write the best prompts. So this is one of the 5 sessions, and 3 of them already have been uploaded on our YouTube channel, and we will have the last one next week. So what's so special about this series is that it's hands-on. So we would like to provide you with something that you can use immediately. It's flexible, so you can be here with us online, or you can also watch it on your own pace. It's completely free, so you can just tune in. It's so easy just to go on YouTube. You can share it with your friends, families, and also colleagues. And it's interactive, so you can always send your questions here or join our community on WhatsApp, in which we will share with you the QR code and ask your questions, maybe also share your learning, and also get feedback from the peers. So as being mentioned, so this is one of the 5. We are now on the 4th. So today's topic is multimodal prompts for different data types such as text, audio, and images. And this is the QR code of our WhatsApp group channel. So if you would like to join, just scan this and join us and have a conversation with us. Send your questions, and we're looking forward to seeing you there. So today, Ziggy will take over with the presentation, and he will also start by introducing himself. So Ziggy, please take over, and the stage is yours.
Thank you. Lovely. Yep. So as being mentioned, also founder of Aiku, been in the data and AI industry at large for more than 8 years now. Next to Aiku, I'm also working at the Fraunhofer Institute. Everything that I do is circulating around how to use AI best, how to make best sense of it, plan for it in the organizational context, and then implement it. Prototyping is a big thing these days, and also for us a very, very important topic to upskill people the best means that we can. And this is how we arrived at the idea of making this prompt lab. And today is already the 4th session, second last session, and so far very enjoyed it a lot. And yeah, let's kick it off because we have so much to cover. Again, I hope the scheduled hour is enough because we have many different topics that we want to address. So I want to kick it off with a video that you might already know, maybe not. It's quite an interesting case that is coming from the Google Research Labs, and it's called Project Astra, and it showcases how we in the future might use AI assistants. And the video is muted. You can watch it yourself, in fact. What I really like about this showcase is how different media is used in interaction with a large language model or with a multimodal model that is sitting at the back of it. You see the researcher walking through the office, pointing the camera at different objects and giving tasks to the large language model. These tasks are quite complex. The first one is more of a knowledge extraction. What is this part of a speaker? What does it do? Then it asks for creative alliteration, then explaining code. This one is really, really cool. The question is, in what neighborhood do you think I am? And it says, and this is correct, that it is the King's Cross area in London, which is where the offices are located. And the next thing I find tremendous, and it is the question of, hey, where have I put my glasses? And since the camera captured the table and the glasses were on the table, it recalls that the glasses were there. Next, it's demonstrated how the glasses are being used as capturing the video content. And then the play just continues with different tasks. Here, the question is, what does this remind you of? Schrödinger's cat. So it can also make these logic sense or logic thinking. And the next one is a little bit more creative. What does this duo remind you of? And it's golden stripes. So pretty cool. I suggest if you have not seen it yet, look it up. Also to catch the video, the audio again. But it's already 1 year old. I did not say that. It's from May 2024, and still it's totally up to date with the many features and functionalities that we see large language models and AI systems at large being equipped with recently. And it is not only working on text basis, taking text as input, but also generating text. But it's also audio or speech input, as well as output, image, video. It almost doesn't make a difference anymore which type of media we are providing, because it all converges into one big system where we then are being tasked to provide the optimal input to the model, and at another step, generate the best outputs. And this is what this will be about today. We will, for image processing, for video processing, for audio processing, but also for structured text output, look at how could we provide the best input and how could we generate the best output. So I will have a lot of prompting tips for you. I will have a lot of examples again, and I'm sure you will go out with at least a lot of inspiration what you could try next when you are in an interaction with a large language model that then becomes more like a multimodal model or vision language models, VLM, they are sometimes also called. That is the focus for today. All right, now let's start with the first of the many topics that we have, and it is image processing and generation. I want to start with giving you some examples. The examples are drawn from a Google documentation, could be from other tools as well. The reason why I have shown Google at the beginning and now Google doesn't have to be interpreted as we have a specific affiliation or so, not at all actually. I just want to use these examples because the documentation is quite all right. What are some capabilities that these models these days have? One could be classifying images and recognizing what actually is on an image. Here, very simple example. Give me a list of all of the important things in this picture, and it does so correctly. Next thing, a little more complicated, because it's not only about recognizing what is on the image, but also calculating, here, as you can see in the task, how much money did we make today? And then you would need to interpret what this means here. It's a 5 calendars sold. And then what is the price of a calendar? Here, the information is also provided. It's all handwritten. So you need to decode the handwriting as well. But it does that correctly. And it provides also the reasoning. Explain your reasoning as part of the prompt. The total amount of money made today is $100. This is because the note says that 5 calendars were sold at $20 each. Not bad. Then you have just seen the example with Schrödinger's cat, which goes a little bit into the logical capabilities, logical thinking. And here is another example of that comes with the documentation as well from the page. And it is this sequence of shapes. And the question is, what comes next? Explain your reasoning. You might know that from some intelligence tests that we have done somewhere back in school, I don't know. But sure enough, it finds a plausible reasoning for that. And it says the triangle has 3 sides, then the square has 4 sides, and the pentagon has 5 sides. The number of sides increases by 1 for each shape. Therefore, the next shape should have 6 sides. So it's a hexagon. And yeah, that sounds reasonable. So what we arrive at this point is that we can use the multimodality in an interesting way to interact with these models, as I have indicated at the beginning. One very simple case could be you just provide an image and you create a text with that. For instance, here the example is generate a marketing copy for this product image, focus on copper accents and ergonomic design. That's a product or marketing related use case. One thing that I myself really like to do, and I will show that later on with a little more detail as well, you provide a screenshot and say, hey, change the color of this call to action button in the hero section of the landing page to a white background, because maybe at the moment it has a blue background, but you want it to be white, and then it changes the underlying code. So these were so far all examples that are in one bigger category of research as well. It's called visual question answering. So I've drawn this from a research paper that's also attached down here. And I wanted to use this in order to introduce some key techniques that you actually are already familiar with from last sessions, but it highlights actually how valuable these basic methods can turn out, even with using images. And let's go through it one by one. Here, the task is, can zoom into the task a little more so you can see it. It's a little bit pixelated, but it's fine. You see the image with a man on it, and he, in one hand, has a suitcase, and then the other hand is a little bit, it's not really stretched out, but it's a little elevated, the arm. And the question is, why does the man have an elevated arm? And the answer is because he needs to hold balance. The suitcase is heavy, and then, well, we know that all from our last travels, that it can be challenging to walk with a heavy suitcase. And basically, the way how it's being approached, or how it can be approached, is that we provide the question and the image without any further explanation, and then the answer that we get might be he's holding a suitcase, which is not sufficient because our answer that we wanted was he needs to hold balance. And one technique could be that we give an expectation of how we want the the output to be structured in a question template. And here the input is your task is to answer a knowledge-based question. Then there's the task instruction, and it gets this task done all right in this case, yet it can still be faulty. So in this little overview, it does not highlight that this actually is not the best technique. What works better is to also provide more contextual information. So what could be contextual information? It could be a caption of the image. So a person with a suitcase walking on a sidewalk could be the image caption. And the way how this then works is to provide the caption as a prefix, as we can see here. And this is added to the prompt in order to achieve a better result. So what do we learn from it? More context works better. This is something that we already know from our sessions beforehand, so we are not surprised. We are already semi-experts, right? But we have learned other things as well, such as reasoning and chain of thought can be one approach that has been also tried here. And let's think step by step as the template sentence for chain of thought is also applied here. So you see the way how it was applied. Let's think step by step. No further context. That needs to be highlighted. There's no further context. So if I was to criticize this prompt, then I would say, why don't you add more context to it? And it actually turns out to be faulty. It doesn't provide us with the right answer with the balance. The researchers here have extended the chain of thought technique by self-consistency, and then it comes up with some reasoning that points towards balance. But what is proven better is few shot examples that were extended, that the prompt was extended with. But the most effective way to get better results from this visual question answering, VQA. So this is basically what happened in the 3 prior examples. We provide an image, we provide a task. The best way to help ourselves is actually providing better contextual information. Since this is anything but straightforward, there can be errors. We have just seen how sometimes a small change in the prompt, a little addition with the context can create a better result. And some techniques can help to mitigate these errors. And one would be visual grounding. So in order to guide the attention of the model, you could have it focused on a specific section of the image. So let's one aspect would be, or one example would be, describe the left third of the image containing the circuit board, particularly component Q12. So this reduces hallucination usually. Another approach would be to go iteratively, break down the task, and then first ask it to identify, in this example, identify all images, all animals in the image, and then the next prompt is whether a particular animal is of a particular kind. So this animal in frame 3, wolf or husky. So this can help with accuracy. One way to get away, let's say, quote unquote, get away cheap, I would say it's the most efficient way to do it. It can also be very effective. It's actually visual prompting. Why? Because here we don't rely on text input, but we provide visual clues. And you might know this from trying out the new features from ChatGPT that, where basically, I don't know, everyone on the internet and your grandmother has recently tried to create some cartoon-like image of something. And one thing that comes as a feature is that you may select a section and then maybe something that you want to have changed. In my example here, there's like this robot in the middle. You can highlight it. That's your visual prompt. And you extend that or complement that by a textual prompt. In my case, it is replace the robot with a prototype of a rocket. And then you can send that prompt. So visual prompting in this regard is a very mighty tool that you can use yourself. Later on, I have another example for that in a different context as well. So here's a little checklist that I have provided. It's not the last checklist, actually. These checklists are for, let's say, more complicated or complex tasks. This one here for if you want to have the visual question answering in a way to extend it by reasoning. One thing that you should for sure check is context. Somehow try to augment the prompt with more contextual information. That can be the captions. It can be a more details on what is where. It helps the performance a lot. Another approach can be reasoning. So potentially provide few shots of how you expect the outcome to be. So it's basically a sequence of image, question, reasoning, answer. And in addition to that, potentially even external knowledge or tool use, such as with the React method. That is something that with structured output we will showcase later on as well. But these are methods and tools that you already know from our previous sessions, and you already know how effective they can be. And here also in this multimodal context, they remain mighty tools. So far, we have talked about how to use images as an input mostly. I shift gears a little bit now, and I'll focus on text-to-image generation prompting. That means we want to generate images from text prompts. That, in fact, is a whole art of itself. And there's also something on the internet that you might have come across, these action figures that people really, really enjoy sharing on social media. A friend of ours has created these for the two of us, for Soraya and myself. I find them very funny. That's why I have put them into this presentation with, with a little bit of amusement factor maybe. And I've also put one exemplary, I should say, prompt that could create you one of these. So this is actually inspired by a suggestion from a guy on Reddit. And he basically more or less like this said like, okay, this is how I do it. Yeah, you can tell that it's quite an elaborate prompt. It first explains what this is about. Then there is some more information about gender, style, hair, face. There's also more details on what should be on the packaging in a large writing, the name, and below the title, and so many more things, even on the style. As you can see here, the style is cartoonish, cute, but still neat. You can already guess there are so many things that one can consider crafting a prompt that would generate you the image that you have in mind. And in fact, there are quite a few. So here I put together a list that is from the back of the sources that I have put on the slide before. Reason why the sources are not on this slide is there was just no space anymore because it's so comprehensive. So take this slide, take a screenshot of it, use it as your screensaver, desktop, whatsoever, to remind you whenever you want to use a text-to-image prompt. There are so many. I can also highlight which ones are to be used centrally or most importantly, and maybe we just go through it one by one very quickly. The subject, so what is the main focus of the image, is a very core component, such as the action. So what is the subject doing? It's very, very important as well. The environment in which the whole scene is playing with the background or the setting. Here there are some examples. Could it be a forest? Could it be a street, underwater, whatsoever? Style, it was something that was very popular with the first iterations that we have seen, like a year, 2 years ago, and so on, with Van Gogh-like pieces. This remains to be quite central. The lighting, in terms of what type of light, the direction of light, the quality of the light, is already something that you would see with more, I would say, like, or better crafted prompts. This can elevate your outcome quite a lot. As from what I see, it's not central. Color palette, desired color palettes, what you want to have there. Sometimes the models can be confused by that and generate literally a color palette into the image. I have had that experience, but not all of them. So you need to be very explicit what you expect there. I have examples in a moment. Then what camera or composition do you wish? That can be, for photorealistic images, quite central. So is it a close-up portrait? Is it wide angle, whatsoever? Mood and atmosphere, so the emotional tone, the feeling, not super central. Further, there's the quality and details, like keywords to enhance the realism and detail quality, such as photorealistic. It should be 8K, masterpiece, award-winning. Can help, but is no have to. Then there are some things that work with particular models, with stable diffusion. Negative prompts and weighting can be something that can help. And this is particularly for negative prompts, elements to exclude, which is interesting. And with weighting, it could be some keywords to emphasize or de-emphasize. So this is already the advanced level for sure. That is not it yet. There are more technical parameters in addition to it that you can leverage to get systematically a better outcome. First is so-called CFG scale, which is a classifier-free guidance, and it basically controls how closely the model keeps to the prompt, or how much it varies from, like, with its own creativity from the original setting. The higher the value means stricter adherence, so it stays closer to the prompt. It can result in less diversity, but if you want to have less deviation, then this is better. The default number is usually somewhat like 7. Then steps, so the number of steps that a diffusion model goes through. The more steps, the more detail. Usually 25 to 50 provides a more detailed result, and fewer steps, such as 10, 15 for quicker iterations. More steps require more time, therefore fewer steps are usually part of prototyping, first iterations. This is how I usually use it, and it saves time, if not money. Then the seed is also important. This is to maintain in this randomized process the root and recreate an image with the same parameters and so on. So Changing the seed generates variations. Keeping the seed keeps the same output. Another very interesting point can be a sampler, which is an algorithm for the diffusion model or for diffusion steps. And different samplers can produce different results. We'll see that in a moment. And the aspect ratio, this is very, very basic. Usually it's part of every prompt. So here I would also highlight, like, you should definitely think about that. So, and in many interfaces where you create an image, they already have it preset for you. So you want to have a one-on-one square or widescreen portrait and so on. Very central. Examples. This is from Stable Diffusion. 2 prompts that I have here with the related images. The first prompt is about a valley, fine detail, 4K. Here there is this negative prompt involved as well. So it shouldn't be a low resolution, it shouldn't be blurry. And then the technical parameters here are how many steps, what sampler, algorithm, CFG scale, which seed, the size of the image itself, and even what model. In a similar setup, you find the other image here created of this boy playing a football. Here you again find the same setup with more detail to the prompt itself, where you can see that it should be a painting and stunning artwork, highly detailed. There's some airbrush that should be involved, and even an artist is mentioned, Chicago airbrush art. So it's very, very filled with a lot of details. Then a little checklist on how to generate highly specific images. As I have highlighted, it really needs a lot of detail. So provide detailed prompts with subject, action, environment, style, lighting, color, mood, composition. Be very specific on the terms as well. Maybe some synonyms that you can think of. Then an additional layer of control that, at least with Stable Diffusion, you have it, is negative prompts. What should be excluded? You have seen that. Experiment with parameters. How creative can the model be with the CFG scale? How many steps should it iterate? What's the speed, the seed? What's the aspect ratio? And so on. I find that it actually takes a lot of experience before mastering it. I don't perceive myself being there. I am honest. I feel like a beginner whenever I create an image. And the only way I am convinced that you can help yourself is systematically experimenting with these different parameters. So think of the different components in a prompt as something that you can add or take out, and go through the process in small iterations. Try one step at a time and go least to most. So start with a small one and make it a little bit bigger and see how it improves. As you experiment, keep the number of steps low so that it runs efficiently. This is my 10 cents on it. And this is how we already get into the video processing techniques. And here I want to directly highlight what are the prompting suggestions that we find here. These I have mostly drawn from Runway and Adobe Firefly. Also from Sora, there were some recommendations. And I am putting them right after the image generating prompts because it's similar. You will see that. What do they say should work well? It is a subject. Again, we already know it. Who's in the scene? Action. What is the subject doing? The scene, location. What is the setting? What is the environment? What could be the weather? Then the visual style, aesthetics. Is it just now? It was like the art style. So is it cinematic, animated, realistic, specific art style, color palette, could even be mood. Here it's a little bit captured in one category, I would say. And then camera control, of course, because now we have moving motion. So what shot type is it? Close up, wide? What's the camera angle? Is the camera moving a little bit? Does it pan out? Does it zoom in? What does it do? There's a common structure that is, or there's, let's say, a common structure that is that you can take from the recommendations, and it is camera control, then the subject or character, then the action, what does the character do, then the scene, and the aesthetics. So should you process audio or video files, there is a whole lot of breadth to it. And this is actually something which is relevant if you are in the context, or if you think of the context of long meeting transcripts that are being generated for us in the back after we have ended our recording, also of this session, for instance. What happens in the back, it actually is a whole engineering masterpiece of its own. I think what I want to highlight here is that what is important if you use audio or video files as an input is that you need to think of a couple of things. One is chunking the media as you process it in a pipeline. That is a multi-step process of itself, really, where each chunk is processed, then summarized, usually in index-based data format, and then LLMs are being used to synthesize everything in a very informative way for us to downstream process it further, for instance, for summarization or for a usual Q&A chat assistant use case. Here, a RAG can be leveraged. We have discussed that in the past. And when prompting on these cases, you can think of examples such as provide captions for this video chunk. And there's also something special here. It says dense captions, a little bit of a technical thing that you try to make information a little bit more like concise, and then guide the large language model for the final task as well. Here, summarize the key events based on the chunks or answer the questions using the provided context. Topic of its own. As I said, it's an engineering masterpiece, if you ask me. Now, audio processing. Audio can be interesting as we converge many things. One example that I have here is how we could use audio with video in this regard. Here we have explain a relationship of a chemical demonstration in the video and the safety precaution mentioned in the narration. So imagine you have a chemical production plant or something like that. There are safety guidelines which are maybe recorded, maybe in a text format. You have a video to it, and you have the question answer game again. Now it's not only visual, it's also audio and video. Quite an interesting case, also discussed in the research paper that I have attached with this example. Text audio generation is something that can come in various colors. Let's go through 3 aspects that if you wanted to, I think you could fill a whole session for each of those. But I just want to provide you a brief overview of what is relevant in terms of prompting if you want to focus on either of these 3 exemplary use cases. Speech generation is the first. The content and how you want a speech to be delivered is essential and actually like quite central. Obviously, the input text influences the delivery a lot. You should use punctuation in order to guide the pauses and the intonation. That's very important. Another thing that can be interesting is capitalizing words that need to be emphasized. But what does not help is to add unusual symbols of the formatting. So HTML or Markdown that we used to use in our prompts, like structuring the prompt. I introduced these tags that can be like XML, HTML, Markdown, whatsoever. Here, you should not provide them if you want to generate a speech. Otherwise, you run into a risk that they are being generated as a speech as well. Then for the voice characteristics, yeah, is it a mildly middle-aged man or woman, gender? What could be the accent, Australian, male, Polish, you name it. Characteristics of a person could also be part of it. Grumpy old pirate surely sounds fun. The next point with sound effects, that's actually quite a niche case, but still very valid if you think of how many sound effects it requires for the syncing of a movie and how tedious that can be to manually fabricate these. What are some core components of a prompt in this category? Of course, the description. So here the example is glass shattering on concrete. There should be some complexity in it, such as here, wind whistling through trees, followed by leaves rustling. Additionally, some parameters. So you should specify how long should that be, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, and so on. That in fact is also important for video generation. Usually the user interfaces have that as a preset or something to configure for you. And the last point here, music generation, that has been big in the last at least 2 years as well. Spotify claimed that we don't need music anymore and everything will be AI generated. What is important in this category? The genre and style, of course. Let's say you want to have jazz or upbeat pop, whatsoever. And then what instruments are to be used? Should it be an acoustic guitar here? Should it be piano play? Then again, the mood, atmosphere. As you can see, some of these components, regardless whether it's image, video, or in this case, music generation, since it's related to art, some of these components are similar at least. And here, mood and atmosphere, even though it's music generation, was something that we had with video and image generation as well. So examples could be like energetic, joyful, dark, moody. Specific characteristics could be tempo, rhythm, maybe some effects, some structure or progression should build up. It should have a climax whatsoever. If you want to have text-to-speech with very specific voice generated, then you can think of these 3 things that should be on your checklist. Write a very detailed prompt, potentially refine it with more specific formatting to highlight what is to be emphasized, where are the pauses. Some platforms have specific controls in terms of how speedy the voice should be and so on. And make sure that you have a high quality input text. One thing that I wanted to highlight here in this side note is that an easy yet effective shortcut can be providing voice samples. That usually shortcuts in a similar way how visual prompting does it, with providing samples that if you have a particular voice in mind, that this particular voice is being created. So in this regard, we understand that providing examples works very, very well with multimodal models in general, just as it did with text generation, with visual prompting and images. It works in a similar vein with text-to-speech as well. Last point is not so much about artistic features such as audio, video, images. It is about structured output. What is this all about? This is most important and relevant if you want your large language model to be used in a way that its output will be picked up downstream by another application. And this application needs specific arguments. And usually when interacting with an application, you think of APIs. And API calls have a structure of a JSON format. And how could you create that? This is very, very central in structured output. And my example here comes from a case that I have drawn from LangChain. They have very good documentation on that. Can recommend checking that out. There's also a very good GitHub repository that I found. Definitely can check that out as well. How can that look? You can actually put that into your prompt right away. So here, the example is, tell me a joke about cats, respond in JSON with setup and punchline as keys. Here we have also an example that I have provided with another joke. The setup is, why was the cat sitting on the computer, and then punchline as another key to keep an eye on the mouse because a computer has a mouse. Funny. And then this is the input. What have I gotten out from using an OpenAI for a mini model? Nothing special. Here, another joke, a new joke. The joke is, what do you call a pile of cats? A meowtain instead of mountain. Okay, that's also funny. Good. So, all right. Now, what are the different methods here? I also wanted to share that. So if you do that, you have 4 different ways how to tackle this. The first one, I have just demonstrated that, is the direct prompting. So you basically provide that in the prompt itself. It's very, very easy. Complexity is low. Reliability is basically none because you don't know. You should provide examples with it, but if you don't provide examples, it can be a little bit of a hit and miss. Then the next method, actually they're very closely connected, function calling and tool calling. This is for when you want your large language model to generate structured requests, JSON usually, to call a predefined function. So you have a function in mind that has specific arguments that it requires as an input, and then you provide that in your prompt. Tool calling is basically the same. It is an extension of function calling. This is how it differs, and therefore you can run multiple function calls in a single request. These ones are a little bit more reliable, but complexity is high. I need to highlight. So this is why this is mostly for complex workflows, or if you want to interact with APIs or tools or whatsoever. I will show an example in a moment. And then there is another thing, which is JSON mode. This is something that some models provide, not all of them. Then you create, if you switch it on, basically, it's something that you can switch on or off, then it's guaranteed, and therefore it's reliable, that you get a JSON output. And therefore, complexity is also lower in this regard. Let's look at some examples. These ones are from the LangChain documentation. It's pretty neat. It also leverages Pydantic as a framework to structure the output, or also how you input the information. You don't need to understand it in detail. it's basically a help for us to structure the input better. As you can see here in this definition of this joke class, it has these two parameters, which are setup and punchline. We use this structure to populate further down the query towards the large language model. So in this regard, what we get back doesn't look like JSON, actually. It looks like the structure that we have defined up here, but still it's structured in a way that the next tool can pick it up. And it is here a new joke. I can tell a lot of jokes today. Why was the cat sitting on the computer to keep an eye on the mouse? No, it's not a new joke. I hope there are new jokes, but they all just read differently. So also with the JSON mode, you have a new joke or the punchline being delivered differently just because it wanted to keep an eye on the mouse. And this almost concludes our presentation of the day. I would just have one more or two more inputs. So at first, I want to highlight that this can be used for extracting information from images or audio and video in a structured way. So think of use cases where you have product details from an image that you want to extract from an image and load into a database, let's say. Then it's interesting to have such structured data extraction, and in a similar vein, summarize a video, get the timestamps and the structured list of the input, let's say, in a JSON format, so that you can load it into a database again. And if you want to do so, mind a couple of things that I've already mentioned. Not all language models provide that. You have to choose the language models carefully. The prompt needs to be clear. There can either be the JSON schema in it already. Pydantic can be used. Few shot examples work very well. And in an iterative process, you probably need to check how you can validate and refine that. And this was my last point. And I can sum up everything and give a little bit of maybe an inspiration or an impulse what to do next. And it is to try vibe coding. Vibe coding has been something that came up as like a little bit of an internet trend. And it's all about not coding anymore, just looking at what the large language model has come up with and then vibing with the large language model in a prompt environment to change the web application or website, whatever. And why do I say try vibe coding? It's not because I'm convinced that this will replace software development whatsoever. It is a great use case of multimodality. And I have highlighted it here in this little example that I have drawn from Firebase Studio. It's a Google product they have recently launched. So I have tried it just, and this was interesting. So with just one prompt, you can basically create a web application. In my example, it was like a fitness tracker. And then what you can do is you can create some annotation to the user interface that you see that has been created for you, which is the representation of the source code that has been created and sitting at the back. And so you annotate that what you want to have changed, and you provide what you want the change to be like. Change the color of the button to orange is my instruction. And then I send this. I send the drawing and my instruction, and then the model starts to reason about it and interpret it in a way that it translates that into the source code, which is the next media format. So we are coming from the screenshot to an annotation of the screenshot to the source code. And also with my textual prompt, these are 4 different formats of media that are being used to work on my instruction as I am vibing, which is phenomenal. I think in order to understand what could be potential use cases outside of software development, even if you're not a software developer, because for vibe coding you don't have to be a software developer. This is interesting to just explore the field of multimodality. That can be fun. I'm just really enjoying it, and therefore, yeah, uh, go and enjoy yourself as well, and then you can be as cool as the kids are currently. And that concludes the last point of the session.
All right. Thank you so much, Ziggy. That was really, really interesting and also a lot of information to digest. And I can imagine that there are so many things to be, for me at least, to be Googled and to be checked into more details and deep dive. And we will see you next week. Thank you so much.